How a cybersecurity challenge could be overcome.
Multiple incidents all over the globe where also critical information is being distracted,
Hacked,
stolen, or where computer networks are taken hostage by malware.
Disinformation is one of the deadly phenomena, particularly from India against Pakistan.
When it comes to detecting disinformation, also cybersecurity threats, identifying the actor is extremely difficult.
Is there any international law that could regulate the cyberspace and prevent this cyberbullying, cyber crimes?
The international community is working on different treaties and negotiations in that regard, especially to prevent cyber crimes, or the criminal aspect of cybersecurity.
Lingering issues, lingering conflicts in so many parts of the world, including Palestine, Israel, Afghanistan, Sudan, Jammu and Kashmir, between India and Pakistan. Should we think international law is ineffective?
I wouldn't say international law is ineffective. I would say that the international community at the moment and the international cohesion is struggling. The United Nations is struggling with the fact that large donor countries, also the also the United States, is not giving the United Nations the funds it needs to operate.
So funding issue is there.
Funding issue is certainly there, but also the issue of political cohesion is there.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello and welcome to program Insight in Videos English. Dear viewers, there are multiple issues in the global order. When we say there are global issues, global order, one of the biggest issue in the global politics is cybersecurity. Cybersecurity has become one of the most challenging issue for not only for the bigger nations, but also for every country in the world. And bigger nations are having more resources and protecting their cyberspace. Smaller countries are spending in accordance with their available resources. So what is this cybersecurity? How a nation could be protected? And when we say nations, people are part of this nation. How a common man could be protected from cyber attacks and cyber deceptions. And then along with this, there is another very, very complex, serious issue, that is disinformation, which is affecting the global peace, global economies. Many nations, many countries who have hostile ties with each other, they are indulged in disinformation. So through disinformation, systematic campaigns are launched, that how disinformation could also be addressed. And then, of course, how globally peace and conflict resolution could be promoted. Peace could be promoted and conflicts could be resolved. And to discuss this all, we are fortunate to have with us a global personality from Austria, Mr. Michael Zinkanell, who is the Director for Austria European Union Security Policy, and he is heading this particular think tank. Mr. Michael, very warm welcome in our program, Insight in Videos English. I would like to seek your thought. Pakistan is also one of the countries where it is facing this cybersecurity challenge. What is this cybersecurity globally? And how a cybersecurity challenge could be overcome? You think so through a common approach? Is there any multilateral forum through which this issue could be affected? And as I said, it is one of the most serious and devastating issue because non-state actors could be using this particular cyberspace to harm people and states.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the kind invitation. As you have already mentioned in your introduction, cybersecurity, cyber threats becomes a very serious threat for nation states, for sovereign states, for global peace, but also for companies, for the private sector, for individuals.
For business.
They're also directly affected by cyber attacks. So it is a global issue because other than conventional threats, in the land, sea, or air domain, cybersecurity or disinformation campaigns do not follow national borders. They are not bound by geography because they're totally global in nature due to their technological, their digital aspects and dimension. So when cyber attacks, malware attacks are launched, on one country, on one company in one country, they can easily spread to other parts of the world, affecting the societies in these countries as well.
True.
And therefore, for governments around the globe, this is a huge issue, not only because of the financial implications, but also because cyber attacks could also target critical infrastructure that are necessary for the stability of a country in order to ensure that social services, that energy is being distributed to the people, for the stability of the country, for the social cohesion as well. But they're also used for espionage, reasons. Exactly. As we have seen in the past, multiple incidents all over the globe where also critical information is being distracted. Hacked, stolen, or where computer networks are taken hostage by malware, where ransomware is being demanded for these computer networks to be operating again. So this is indeed a new form of violence that is not yet being holistically addressed. The first and most important thing, because you asked also what kinds of solutions there would be.
Exactly.
The most
quick
crucial,
immediate steps are measures.
Exactly. I think the most crucial aspect tackling cyber threats, but also disinformation campaign, is awareness raising. Awareness raising towards political stakeholders, awareness towards the political people in charge, but also to companies, the private sector, and individuals, the whole society at large, in order to raise awareness that this is indeed a security threat. Only then will we be able to identify patterns, the techniques, the strategies, the appliances that are being used to distribute these attacks. Only then will it be possible to identify them and to also develop meaningful policies to disarm them and to counter them.
You said awareness needs to be created, but don't you think other than awareness, we need resources as well, because it's a issue of resources. Larger, big nations, big countries, the industrial and economically stable countries have huge resources, technologies, expertise, education. Where underdeveloped world may not have that type of resources to tackle with cybersecurity or to combat with disinformation. Taking example of Pakistan has suffered for years and years a disinformation campaign from India. Finally, a few years back, there was Disinfo lab located in Europe, which detected finally that it was India which was indulged in disinformation for years and years against Pakistan. And even some of the names of the dead authors and the dead journalists were used.
Yeah.
And exactly. So I need your comments that disinformation is one of the deadly phenomena, particularly from India against Pakistan. Yes.
Yeah. I think when it comes to detecting disinformation, also cybersecurity threats, identifying the actor is extremely difficult.
So identifying the real actors.
Identifying the real actors is extremely difficult because they hide their traces very well. There are certain digital forensic elements that can be traced, but that doesn't mean that the actors of a particular disinformation campaign or cyber attack are indeed from that country. And even if we say we can pinpoint which IP addresses were used in a certain attack, we don't know who are the individuals behind that. Is it a single individual? Is it a group? Is it a non-state actor? Is it an actor that is funded by another state or not? So these are extremely delicate issues that we have to tackle. Of the incidents that you mentioned directly, I don't have any detailed analysis and knowledge now about these incidents, so I cannot comment directly on them. But I know that globally speaking, and also with regards to the European Union and its member states, this has been an issue to identify the real actor who is behind. Regardless of the actor, the damage is still there. So you can focus either on the actor or you can focus on damage control. And for damage control and for mitigating these attacks, raising awareness is the first step, as I mentioned. Certainly resources are also important, but without the awareness, without informing the people, without critical thinking, without making hearts and minds of the people aware of this challenge, we cannot tackle it at all. We can have the best resources.
Awareness and education as well.
Awareness and education. Education is, in my eyes, a part of awareness, of course. But without that, we can have the best resources and we won't be able to tackle these issues.
So how resources could be made available? Smaller countries or the poor countries may not have resources. So is there any international law that could regulate the cyberspace and prevent this cyberbullying, cyber crimes, misuse of cyberspace, and those maybe non-state actors, sometimes state actors in different countries, they are also indulged. So where is international law to deal with cybersecurity?
Yeah. The international community is working on different treaties and negotiations in that regard, especially to prevent cyber crimes, or the criminal aspect of cybersecurity. However, as we know, international law, these processes, they take a lot of time. So state actors are
so far there is no international
There is
law.
no holistic international approach to tackle these issues on the entire globe. So state actors are the ones that are predominantly and primarily responsible for counteracting. However, there can be more international cooperation, and there should be more international cooperation in information sharing,
cyber crimes,
in combating cyber crimes, cyber attacks, in preventing as well. I think information sharing is a crucial element here, because cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns, they follow certain patterns, they follow certain technical elements. And if you analyze these, that information, that crucial information can be shared from one country to another in order to inform each other, in order to have best practices, lessons learned, lessons identified that can also be shared with other countries, with other states. So in the European Union, there have been a lot of analysis, a lot of data made available. So I would encourage also probably the government of Pakistan and other governments around the region to probably go and engage a little bit more with European actors to share information on that regard, because I think we can learn a lot from each other in that field, and we can only tackle the global issue of cybercrime, cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns together.
Another thing that you have an expertise in security-related issues, forming, developing, educating, and disseminating security and peace policies, forming, looking into different aspects of conflicts. Why there are so many conflicts in the world? And does this mean that in cyberspace, you said there is no holistic approach, but for peace and security, there is United Nations, UN Security Council, United Nations Human Rights Council.
Yes.
There are international laws. So because of lingering issues, lingering conflicts in so many parts of the world, including Palestine, Israel, Afghanistan, Sudan, Jammu and Kashmir, between India and Pakistan, should we think international law is ineffective?
I wouldn't say international law is ineffective. I would say that the international community at the moment and the international cohesion is struggling due to the fact...
Struggling for what?
Is struggling due to the fact that we see new geopolitical tensions arising, new power struggles between different countries with different political ideologies. So there are certain power blocks being manifested in this very multipolar world. So the question that you raised, why do so many new conflicts arise? The answer is very multidimensional and very complex. We would have to have several hours to discuss every single conflict in detail. But to simplify it and to break it down, I believe that we can see at the moment certain new, very nationalistic tendencies forming in certain European countries.
Right-wing people coming into, right-wing parties coming into power.
Exactly. This is one element. I'm not saying this is the only or the most decisive element. This is one element. We are at the verge of and the brink of a certain change. We are, in the German, we have a word for it, we call it Zeitenwende. It is a change in time. And for us in Europe, this change in time occurred in 2022 when Russia illegally invaded and attacked Ukraine. This was a wake-up call for us. A second wake-up call was the re-election of President Trump in the United States, the crumbling of the transatlantic relation between Europe and the United States. United States being, of course, always a very primary ally for Europe and the European Union, and a beacon of security in Europe as well. So without that, in Europe, we're also struggling. And worldwide, we see tendencies that new blocs are emerging, and old blocs are manifesting. So especially the global tension between the US and China, but also Russia being at the moment a very aggressive state and actively violating so many principles of international law that you mentioned, same time being one of the permanent 5 member states in the UN Security Council, blocking very significant decision-making processes in the UN system.
So you think this veto power is blocking the global peace?
And we see that in many resolutions that have been
What is the other option then?
In the past. The option is to find collaboration amongst certain states that try to have a more stable international community. Because without international collaboration, without international law, without these rules-based order that we have created ever since the end of the Second World War globally, without the rules-based order, every country, every nation is potentially at risk of being under
there should
attack
be rules-based order.
There should be a strong approach towards rules-based order. And I very much believe, and I'm convinced, that countries around the globe can form a new alliance, a new bloc to uphold these principles of the rules-based order, and blaming and shaming the countries that are abusing that system and that are neglecting it and that are violating it. In Europe, first and foremost, we know that this is Russia with the illegal annexation of Crimea in 2014 already, with the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, with the war that is going on. And at the moment, of course, we could discuss that issue as well. There are some indicators that some sort of peace treaty would be signed. There are indicators also from Russia. However, peace in Ukraine, and especially in the occupied regions,
and peace in Gaza and Palestine.
Yeah. So we see that these global conflicts are emerging. There's not one single answer why they're emerging. It's a complex and multidimensional environment. And we have to be very careful not to make any hasty decisions, not to come to any hasty conclusions, and certainly not to give in to provocations that might be targeting us, no matter if we're situated here in South Asia or in Europe.
Despite American and NATO troops' withdrawal from Afghanistan, Afghanistan could not become a peaceful country. And even United Nations have warned that there are several terrorist organizations, their operatives, their leaders are still working over there. And for Pakistan, terrorism is emanating from Afghanistan. Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan and many other terrorist organizations, Balochistan Liberation Army and many other are based over there. So how do you see this Afghanistan, despite withdrawal of NATO and American troops? It is still...
NATO was never in Afghanistan.
NATO was never in Afghanistan?
No.
Or it was an alliance, exactly.
Yeah, but it was not NATO.
Exactly.
So it was single states, especially the United Nations, but it was not NATO being in Afghanistan.
NATO, International Security Assistance Force was there, ISAF.
Exactly, but it's not NATO, because
ISAF was
the
there.
Northern Atlantic Treaty Organization is especially focused on the Northern Atlantic. Afghanistan being far from it, geographically located in a completely different...
But there have been contribution from these nations into international security assistance.
It's not a NATO presence.
Okay,
so that's
but it was ISAF, and ISAF was having representation, true?
Yes.
Exactly.
So single countries that also belong to NATO, but not NATO as an organization. That's a big difference.
Now the focus is Afghanistan.
Yes.
So how this terrorism, which is based in Afghanistan, could be tackled globally? You think through joint efforts, through how?
Looking at the root causes, why people become terrorists in the first place. Let's not forget the human dimension of it. So I think that there is certain elements, certain indicators that have to be looked at. How terrorism is emerging. One, of course, is extremism, and there is this extremist ideology that most terrorist organizations share in common. But looking at the individual, how does a person decide to become a terrorist? I believe that it is the lack of perspective, it's the lack of future perspective, and socioeconomic factors that are also extremely important.
But there could be motivation by these people as well, who are extremists and terrorists. Then they trap more people into this ideology.
Yes, of course. But it only works, this ideology only works and functions if the people don't have any other option. If this is the perspective that the ideology is giving them, in a simplified way. So if through development initiatives, socioeconomic improvement, improving the life situation on the ground, we can avoid people being drawn to these extreme ideologies in the first place.
True.
Because they only emerge if people are desperate. So let's tackle these root causes. Let's tackle this desperation of individuals, of people, to go this extreme way and join terrorist organizations. And of course, it is a transnational issue. I know that not only Afghanistan as a country, but also the neighboring countries or global community is being affected by this. So of course, also there should be a more regional, more global approach to tackling these issues together, because we're all affected in different ways by these terrorist attacks. The United Nations at the moment is a standstill. Yeah? Because
Is it standstill?
Is it a standstill because of the global issues that are emerging? Doesn't mean that the United Nations becomes obsolete. I hope that it will be
But it is
revived.
standstill, not obsolete.
Certainly not obsolete, but it's very difficult to find some sort of agreement now in the international level, on the UN level, with political polarization that is also manifested in the United Nations, but also with less funds available. So the United Nations is struggling with the fact that large donor countries, also the United Nations, also the United States, is not giving the United Nations the funds it needs to operate.
So funding issue is there.
Funding issue is certainly there, but also the issue of political cohesion is there. Because we have that global power struggle, because certain important resolutions within the United Nations, also within the Security Council and General Assembly, could not be reached because we don't have the majority, or we don't have critical countries, the permanent 5 members of the Security Council, agreeing on certain issues. This is also one of the reasons why we see conflicts emerging, because the United Nations as an actor cannot be active in these areas.
One of the most interesting point that you have shared, that United Nations has not become obsolete, but it is standstill when it comes to the resolution of global issues, global conflicts, and things like that. And moreover, the issue of resources, the bigger countries which need to contribute more to United Nations, the bigger countries which need to respect the law, international law, Security Council resolution, UN General Assembly resolution. So unless these documents, these UN orders, international law is not respected, there cannot be global peace and security. Thank you so much. Despite your very busy schedule, you participated in our program and shared one of the most vibrant ideas and views on cybersecurity, on counterterrorism, and on international peace. Till our next program, goodbye and Allah Hafiz.